Oh, no.
What?
Connor.
What?
I'm now the proud owner of an alpha butt dress. Once you send the offer and they accept it, you've purchased it.
Oh.
This is bad. This is bad. This is really fucking bad.
Wait, I didn't know that was
so
how that worked.
Right now. So dumb.
That's why I said make a comment.
I can't talk to you anymore. You make me do the stupidest thing. You make me do the stupidest shit that I would never do, ever.
I'm so sorry.
You make me stupid. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind before I talked to you. Oh, I'm sick. I'm going to be sick. Okay.
But on the whole, I've been a saint to those poor unfortunate souls.
Hello, and welcome to Poor Unfortunate Podcast. I'm Connor Perkins.
And I'm Caroline Amedi.
Welcome, returning listeners. It's great having you back here with us, and welcome to any new listeners. Thank you so much for hitting play. Please also remember to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. That way, all of our episodes download right to your device. You don't miss out on anything. And then everybody, we're going to make sure that we hit 5 stars and leave a written review wherever you're listening to the podcast. This helps us get seen in search results, helps other people find the podcast. That and physically sharing this, which I'm also going to just ask you to do with someone that you know who might love this podcast. Those are the two best things that you can do to help us grow the podcast and honestly just like keep this thing going. So if you want more Poor Unfortunate podcast, tell people. Thank you.
He's not kidding. He is not kidding around. You should see the
kidding.
Look in his eyes. He is not joking.
Listen, I showed face on Instagram for this. So So this is our tips and tricks episode. Thank you very much for bearing with us. And thank you, Caroline, for holding down the fort on Caroline, What's New while I was out in Chicago.
Nothing like asking myself what's new. It was fun.
Honestly, it was a killer episode. I was like, damn, she sounds a fish. She sounds great. But anyway, this is our tips and tricks episode. And I don't know if you all know this, but a little something called D23 happened. And I don't think either of us were prepared for the sheer amount of news that we were going to get out of it.
I was not. I expected a lot more teasing and a lot less telling. And we got a lot of like real dates and like real concept art, not just like blue sky. It was pretty insane.
We got a lot of, I mean, Josh D'Amaro, when he stepped up on stage, was like, hey, I want to let you all know that these are things that are currently happening. Earth is moving. Plans are made. Everything that you're going to see is happening.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And honestly, I just want to say, we originally, when we were planning out the cycle, kind of had a different plan for this tips and tricks episode. First of all, not knowing how much incredible news we were going to get from D23, but also thank you to all of you who reached out and were like, please, like we need y'all to talk about D23. So your wish is our command, and we are going to do exactly that.
So tell everybody what we're going to do and what the sort of framework is going to be for this.
Yeah, so there was so much news. We could not possibly cover all of it. So what we have done is we have chosen our big 10, and we're going to talk more in depth about what we consider the 10 most exciting announcements for us. But there's a lot of other things that we would love to touch on. So before we get to that big top 10, we are going to do a quick rapid fire, basically toot, boot, or shoot of some of the other pieces of news or announcements that we got at D23. And these are going to be all related to film, TV. I think we might have a theater in there. because the stuff that we're going to talk more about is mostly parks. But there were some trailers and film announcements that we can't just skip over. So we're going to do that first.
So let's do it. Rapid fire. Toot or boot or shoot. Lilo and Stitch live action first look. We got to see a little teaser moment where we saw live action Stitch, what he looks like. What are your thoughts? Toot, boot, or shoot?
Generally, it's still a boot for me. However, the Stitch was looking a little bit better than I thought it was going to. He's pretty cute. So maybe I'll say Toot. Why not?
I'm gonna say Toot because I was thoroughly impressed by this live action Stitch. I was prepared for Nightmare Fuel, and they delivered a cute version.
Yeah.
So good for them.
Okay, next up we got a concept image for Frozen 3 and the announcement of Frozen 4. What say you?
Toot. Absolutely Toot. I mean,
Yeah.
seeing Elsa on the water knock and then also Anna on a horse, like together, I'm like, I'm in, baby. I'm in. We'll see what's going on.
I'm almost like a shoot for this because at first I'm like, when I hear the phrase Frozen 4, I'm like, it's too much. But then when I heard what they're going to be talking about, which is like why Elsa has powers and Anna doesn't, I'm in. I want to know. So tell me. And if it takes 2 movies, let's go. So yeah, I'm totally into it.
Next up, we got Incredibles 3. Toot, yeah.
It's like
Makes
it's the kind of
sense.
thing that's and it can lend itself to as many movies as they want because you can just keep coming up with new villains. So yeah, Toot.
Yeah, Toot. I will say generally, the thing that's kind of booting is how much sequelage is happening.
Yeah, this amongst everything else makes it tougher to get excited for. I will say that.
Yes.
On that note, Toy Story 5, very, very, very brief teaser.
Moot.
Yeah.
I'm moot
Yeah.
on this because number one, how the fuck did Woody get back there? It's full on like somehow Palpatine returned. It's like somehow Woody returned. I'm cool with it being like a war against tablets and the
That's a good
toys. Like,
idea. That in and of itself is a good
great
idea.
But also like the teaser itself was extremely lame because there was no voices at all. It was just like Toy Story 5 and then a character walks up and like waves to the camera and then walks away and then the next one comes up and waves. And it was just sort of like very quiet and awkward, and it made me uncomfortable. I didn't like that.
Yeah. It just starts like with Woody being there, it just starts to feel like the things that really like tug at your heartstrings and like get you emotional in the previous movies don't matter. So I don't know how much longer I can keep being invested because I feel like they're just going to take everything back in the next movie.
Yeah, because like what was the point of Toy Story 4 then?
I don't know. I don't know. Toy Story 4 wasn't my favorite in general, so I don't know the answer to that question. We'll have to talk about Toy Story. We have to talk about that on here a little.
I didn't hate Toy Story 4.
I didn't hate it at all. No, I didn't.
Next up, we've got the Mufasa trailer.
I know this is kind of an unpopular opinion. I think I kind of boot for me. I don't mind. I like having a Mufasa backstory, but I don't need it to be in the CGI.
I've always wanted a brother.
And the music. Oh my God.
I've always wanted a brother. When?
You gotta listen to this yourself if you haven't.
Yeah.
The music.
The Mufasa trailer, I will say that's gonna graduate from a boot to a moot for me because I'm like, I don't want this. Nobody wants. I'm like, what's going on? And I was pleasantly surprised at the trailer. I was like, okay. But I'm still just like not on board with this Nat Geo style.
No, I'm not either.
Animals. I'm like, it's just not it for me.
Yeah.
So much so that I think we'll probably talk about this a little bit later because there were some
We
other
will.
Lion King
We will.
announcements that were made.
I was going to say the same thing. We will talk about that more.
There was also some quick readjusting that Disney has done in the days since.
Yeah. Okay, we also got a trailer for Agatha All Along.
Shoot. Absolute shoot. This is like the single thing for the rest of the year from Disney that I'm like most excited for. The way that they introed it on the stage of having the cast come out singing like Down the Witch's Road.
Mm-hmm.
So freaking cool. So eerie.
So perfect. I'm so excited to watch this during Halloween season. Like, yes. It's going to be so great.
Dream Production. So this is the Inside Out sort of spinoff of what is going on inside Riley's dreams.
Toot. Yeah, Toot. It's in between.
Yeah.
It's in between the events of Inside Out and Inside Out 2. Sure, I want more. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll always go into the world of Inside Out.
Yeah, me too. And then finally, for our last little rapid fire, it was announced that The Greatest Showman is now in development with Disney Theatrical.
Okay. Am I going to reveal something about myself here? Okay, boot for me. I don't like The Greatest Showman. I don't like it.
I don't like
it.
We watched it. We watched it together. We watched it together,
and I was so angry.
And
at
we
the
were,
end of it.
yeah, I know.
The music is.
I
super
love
fun.
the music from Greatest Showman. I do not want this story told about this man. And like,
no, not this man. This
someone
crook,
take
this
not
criminal.
This crook.
Not the crook.
I agree with you.
So hopefully, it will be a boot until otherwise prove it. It needs to prove itself because the story was not there. That movie was a 2-hour music video, and that does not a stage show make. So we'll see what happens.
It feels very motivated by the success of Water for Elephants on Broadway, and like, oh, we can do more circus. Like,
it feels fan servicey.
A little, yeah.
Because people are like, oh my God, we want The Greatest Showman. I'm like, you all just really like the music. No, thank you.
However, one of the actors who was in the cast who sang from it is Hannah Corneau, who I saw as Elphaba.
Oh, as Elphaba.
And Hannah Corneau. If Hannah Corneau is in it, I'm buying my ticket. I love her. She's incredible. If you've never heard of her, look her up. Amazing.
Rewrite the Stars is going to be awesome. It's probably going to be a trapeze thing over the audience.
Oh, yeah. I love that song.
Honestly, if they say that The Greatest Showman is going to take place at Circle in the Square, I'll buy my ticket, and this will
we are
Toot.
sick because when you said it, it's exactly what I thought. But then I'm like, no, but they're going to want to fill a bigger theater than Circle in the Square.
They're going to want to fill a bigger theater, but it should be Circle in the Square.
It'll be
That's where this should be happening.
That would be sick because it's like being at the circus. Yeah, it's too good.
Exactly. For those of you who don't know, Circle in the Square is the sole Broadway house that is built in the Round, and that's where Once on This Island was.
Can we build another theater in the Round? When Connor and I make it big, we're opening another theater in the Round in New York City. Mark my words.
It is truly a different type of storytelling, and it just aches for more creativity from a production and makes things like super cool. All right, so that's our rapid fire toot or boot from our film, TV, stage en smalls. Now let's get into our top 10.
All right, let's go. I'm going to kick it off with one of the biggest parks announcements that we got, which is that Cars will be coming to Magic Kingdom. So yes, this new area inspired by the Pixar Animation Studios film will be coming to a reimagined section of Frontierland in Magic Kingdom. Here is what Josh D'Amaro said at D23. The American West has always been about keeping your eyes on the horizon, believing in yourself, carving your own path, and striving towards success. That goes for miners in the mountains, bears from the country, a princess from the bayou, or a race car from the big city. This land is not Radiator Springs. The setting is not Radiator Springs. We're going out west. So it is not going to be the same setting as the Cars land that is in Disneyland. And it will be home to 2 attractions. The first, and I could not describe it better than what they said at D23. So it is a, quote, thrilling rally race through the mountains. Take on wild terrain as you race across the landscape, climbing mountain trails, dodging geysers, and Mater's favorite, splashing through mud holes. The concept art for this one looks like it'll be a little bit similar to Radiator Springs Racers. But when you look at the concept art, there is like a very exciting, and yes, it is just concept art, but very like off-roady kind of vibe to this.
Yeah.
That looks so exciting to me.
It looks really cool.
Like getting the opportunity to like drive over this like rocky terrain, it looks really cool. It looks cool.
Yeah.
The second attraction will be geared towards children. They didn't really say much about it, but the concept art looks like a mixture between Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, again, from Radiator Springs and Disneyland, and the Indy Speedway. So I think it'll be living in there.
Okay.
Kids are going to get to sort of like race their own cars in some way, shape, or form.
Well, hopefully this means that Indy Speedway is on its way out.
Yeah. And please, like, I hope this one is quieter and less smelly than the Indy Speedway. So then the part that is a bit upsetting to folks, to make way for this expansion, it sounds like Tom Sawyer Island and Rivers of America will be no more.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
Yeah, construction is expected to begin in early 2025. So, Question for you, Connor. So, y'all, we didn't really say that, but we've kind of, last time we caught up on Disney News, how we're structuring this is more of a tips and tricks thing, is we're going to pose a kind of a thought-provoking question to each other at the end of each announcement. So, Michael Hungen, the Walt Disney World portfolio executive producer at Walt Disney Imagineering, said this: "Anytime we touch Magic Kingdom, we recognize the massive responsibility that exists to get it right and tell stories that connect with our guests." So, Connor, what I want to know from you is, how do you feel? I have like 3 questions here, so sorry. How do you feel about the way cars will be built over some pretty iconic portions of Magic Kingdom? Does this feel true to the spirit of this park? Pixar does not feature heavily in Magic Kingdom currently. How do you feel about a big Pixar edition like this one?
That's an interesting question. So I think that it's good. When you think about the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island, they are very much like staples in some sort of way, in that they weren't original to the park. Like they weren't there on opening day, but they were attractions that Walt had a hand in.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, things have to adjust to the time, and Tom Sawyer Island and the Rivers of America are probably the 2 attractions in the Magic Kingdom that are performing under par. People aren't seeking out those attractions en masse, and so it's not as much of a value add to the park as any other attraction might have, including like Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse even. And I think part of it is because of the obstacles to get there, and it occupies a pretty massive footprint of the park.
Mm-hmm.
And disrupts a lot of flow of traffic. Now, one of the other things announced at D23 is the Villain Land, which I'm going to touch on. And I think these sort of go hand in hand. In order to give entry to this beyond Big Thunder Mountain area, they're going to need to have multiple egresses, and they won't have an opportunity for multiple egresses unless they fill in this area, because otherwise you'd have this like terrible bridge situation by Haunted Mansion that would just like not work. So I think logistically it all makes sense. And I think Pixar deserves a place in the Magic Kingdom. I think they've earned it. Out of all of the different sort of things that Disney has acquired, they've earned it. And I do think that Cars married with Frontierland, I think it's actually a pretty creative pairing.
Mm-hmm, I agree.
And sort of speaks to that outside the box thinking. They're not calling this Cars Land. They're calling it Frontierland. It's an expansion of Frontierland, and they're using Cars to bring that. And that makes sense, because like when I think of films from the past 20 years that feel most like a Western, that feel most, in line with Frontierland, Cars is probably one of those movies that comes to mind.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think Pixar deserves a place in the park, and I think that they're handling this with a lot of care. They wouldn't do this on a whim, and there's a lot more, I think, logistically that's being played into this decision for us to have more to the Magic Kingdom, that in order for us to grow the Magic Kingdom, I think unfortunately this piece has to be resolved, filled in, and I do think that they'll honor it in a really, really cool way. I don't know. What do you think?
Very interesting. No, I'm very torn. I everything that you're saying, I agree with. I'm sad, and I think it's something that once I go on this, like what I think is going to be a really incredible attraction, I'll probably get over it. But I'm sad. Like I think about how much my dad loves the riverboat, loves it. And how much some parents really rely on Tom Sawyer Island as a place where their kids can run around and be free for a little while. Some of those simpler, slower experiences that in my mind, I associate with Walt, it always makes me sad. Like I feel like we're losing a little bit of heart when we get rid of those things, and it starts to feel more like another theme park. And again, I agree with you. I think they're doing it with a lot of care. And so I know I don't really have to worry about that, but it does feel like there's something sort of intangible that is lost. And I actually agree with you. I see Cars making sense in Frontierland. I do. But I also thought about the fact that it's like, we had a Cars show in Hollywood Studios at some point. I'm like, I have no idea what kind of space they're working with in Hollywood studios. I could have seen Cars making its way there as well. But again, that probably would have been more Cars Land, Radiator Springs kind of thing. So I also appreciate that this is not a replica of the things that we're seeing in Disneyland. I always appreciate when we do that and give us reasons, to make those two parks different. I do think that Pixar deserves to be in Magic Kingdom, but I have a little bit of resistance to the first big Pixar thing in Magic Kingdom being Cars. It's not really the first big thing because we have the Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor and stuff. But I don't know. It being Cars is a little bit tough for me, and I'm just going to need some time to get used to it.
I completely understand that. I think my biggest thing is the scenery of the Rivers of America is just such a huge part of Frontierland and Liberty Square for me that to change what that looks like is going to be quite the adjustment for me.
Yeah, that's so Liberty Square without the water view is crazy to me.
Yeah. I still think that they will make something look extremely natural and beautiful. Like they're going to give us something absolutely epic to see there. And they're going to take care of the sight lines. Like they can't afford to fuck this up.
It's true. It's true.
It's just the funny thing that, everyone always says about Disney is like the first thing to go when they do a refurb is a fountain 3 years later. And what is the Rivers of America if not a giant fountain? So it's like, of course, Disney's getting rid of the fountain.
Yeah.
But it's also like, yes, the slower stuff is important. I think that's why the railroad is going to be really important as well.
Just that charming, simple stuff. It's sad to me when we lose it.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, if I'm paying that much money to be in that place, to have a rest playgroundy type of area occupy that amount of space.
It'll be all right. I know it'll be all right.
And the difference is we don't use the Rivers of America for anything else other than the riverboat.
Right. We don't have Fantasmic.
We don't have Fantasmic on Rivers of America.
And we don't have the canoe. If we were losing the canoes, like we had the canoes like Disneyland does, that would be sad because that's, again, such a fun, unique, simple experience that would be sad. So
right. This is just a massive thing that really serves only two things. And the return on this, I think, is going to be greater than what is lost. Personally, would I have loved to see us expand Liberty Square into that space with our National Treasure ride?
With National Treasure, with a Muppets dinner theater, with a Hamilton show, with a Sleepy Hollow, whatever. Yeah, all of that. But all right.
Yeah, I would have been okay with that. But if Cars Land in California is any indication for what this place is going to look like, it's going to be gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, staying in Magic Kingdom, let's talk about the next big announcement. So, Disney Experiences chairman Josh D'Amaro shocked everyone when he announced kind of casually on stage. He sort of made it seem like the presentation was over and then Hellfire started playing. He announced that Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World will be getting its biggest expansion ever, with the addition of a villain-themed land. So with Universal Studios' Dark Universe area in their new park, Epic Universe, it seems that Disney is now looking to compete head-to-head and toe-to-toe by giving a home to the most iconic villains of all time. This area will occupy new space. So this is not replacing anything. This is an add-on to an area behind Big Thunder Mountain in Frontierland. This is the area that has long been referred to as Beyond Big Thunder Mountain. And previously we talked about a Coco area and a Encanto area. Nope. This is all villains now. The land will feature 2 major attractions, dining experiences, and shopping as well. No timeline was offered for this expansion, but Josh D'Amaro said that preparation is already underway for this multi-acre expansion in the way of plans for the area and beginning to prep the physical land. The concept art that was released shows a grim, jagged, rocky environment with glowing green waterfalls, a castle reminiscent of Maleficent's Forbidden Mountain, Maleficent in dragon form breathing fire, gothic structures, and what appears to be the track of a roller coaster through thorns and briars. With an expansion of this size and with presumably the work of Frontierland expansion coming first, I think we can expect an opening many years down the line. Regardless, D'Amaro has said that this will be, quote, a fearless new vision for what a Disney experience can be, end quote. So I don't think that there's anybody who's really against this, considering that everyone has been asking for this for many,
Yeah.
many, 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 many years.
Yeah.
So instead of asking you some sort of like challenging question in that way of like, let's talk about the existential nature of this, I'm going to ask you to design your own villain's land. So 2 e-ticket attractions, 2 shops, a show, and a dining experience. What would they be?
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's the thing is I have been so overwhelmed by this announcement. It's one of those things where I'm like I can't even, because the concept art is so, as you said, like very grim looking. I'm like I can't even actually wrap my head around how immersive this is going to be and what we're going to be offered. Like it's going to be mind-blowing. Okay.
It's new. That's what I think what's most exciting about this is completely new territory for Disney. They've never done anything like this before. They don't do Halloween Horror Nights. They don't do shit like this.
Okay. So I want one thing. Okay, so it does seem like we're going to be getting this this Thorns and Briars coaster, which is fine. If that's borrowing from the idea of the dragon coaster that was originally going to be in Beastly Kingdom, I'm down with that. That sounds good. The other one, I want it to be at the level of Rise of the Resistance, Forbidden Journey in Universal. Like, I don't want it to be like a roller coaster. I want it to be something where I can really ride through and be immersed and experience the technology and really experience the story and be genuinely scared at times. And I don't know what I want it to be, but I know what I don't want it to be. And I know that they're probably like, how can we like give every villain their moment? And I just don't think you can do that. So I would be okay with, even though I know the coaster is going to be focused on Maleficent probably, I would be okay if the ride was focused on one villain. I don't think that will happen. I think it will be like a la Phantasmic, like things have gone horribly wrong and the villains are released upon the Magic Kingdom and all of these bad things are happening. What villain would I choose? I need to think about that more. Obviously, does my gut go towards like Ursula? Yeah, it does. It does. But I don't think that could be its own ride. The villain that I find the most like chilling and scary is Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame. But could he have his own attraction? No, he can't.
No.
So I don't know. I am very lost here. Let's move on to the dining because I am truly lost in the attraction, but I know that I want it to be like fully immersive. I want showrooms. I want live actors. I want the Rise of the Resistance experience for sure. And it's got to be because they've talked about in Dark Universe and Universal, like having a ride where like one of the monsters is an audio animatronic that is actually chasing after you. They have to one up that. And I don't even know how you do, but they have to. So I want these villains running the F after me. Like, I want the evil queen to run after me.
And I want audio animatronics. I don't want no projection mapped faces.
Absolutely
I don't want screens.
I want Tokyo level animatronics. And fine. You know what? Since we don't have Snow White's Scary Adventures anymore, if like the evil queen is the star of this and she's chasing me, I am ready. Okay. So then the dining. I'm trying to think like which villain is most associated with dining. And again, I think it's going to be like a villain melange. Like, I don't think it's going to be one villain. But it's like, I could see it, but we already have Maleficent, but I could see it being like a royal dining hall type experience where then the villain comes in and it's like record scratch. But we already have dining with the evil queen at Wilderness Lodge. So
the Horn King's Great Hall where all the people are eating food.
Actually, I bet you it will be that. Did they specify whether it would be sit down or not or quick service?
No, they haven't said anything. They just said shops and a dining experience.
I bet you I can see it being more of a Great Hall type quick service thing, fit the most people possible because they're going to have to deal with the people who absolutely flood this land. And so I think it's going to be like a Great Hall type vibe.
If you could do a show, what would they haven't said that a show will come in. They said 2 major attractions. I guess an attraction could be a show.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to add a show, what would you do?
That's a good question.
I feel like for me, I would almost do something like even like Hades oriented, sort of like
He feels very showbiz to me.
a
Yes.
comedy sort of thing.
Actually, thank you. If we want the ride to be like going down to the underworld,
Oh yeah, that would be dope.
I'm so down with that.
Yeah.
Anything underworld related, I would very much like to see that. Villains who have, I feel like the thing that I want from this is like villains who really have their own world within their movies. So like Hades has the underworld. Like that's
Yeah.
what I want to see. And I just, again, all I know right now, I guess what I don't want. And I know that we can't lean fully into like the terrifying because children will still be going here. I just hope that if there ever was a show that it's not like the villains review, like please no, not that vibe. I want it to be more serious than that.
Though, remember that ride that used to be was it in Tokyo or Shanghai? It wasn't even a ride. It was a walkthrough attraction where you would visit the different villain areas, and there was like Maleficent's castle, and then it ended in the Horn King's chamber. And there was like
it's ringing a little bit of a bell.
Remember that it's defunct now, but there's and there's an audio animatronic like Horned King, and like one of the kids would be responsible for like taking the sword and like defeating the Horned King. It was like an interactive
is what I'm saying.
show.
Like that's what I'm saying. I want interactive.
We could do that.
I want it to depend on live performers, live guests. Like that's what I want. All I can also say now is that I know we want to differentiate between Disney World and Disneyland, but I pray this also means during Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party that we get that villains walkthrough that they get during Halloween in Disneyland, where each of the villains gets their own little area. You get to walk. Like we better get that. Even if that was a more permanent thing, I would be so down for that because I'm not really one to wait online to meet characters anymore. But if it was more of a walkthrough and they're all on the stage, like away from me, I would love that. I would love something like that where I can interact with them, but it's not like one-on-one. What are your ideas? I know that you have some.
I'm on board with a roller coaster. I think a roller coaster makes a lot of sense. I've always wanted to see, it's very niche, it's not going to happen, but I would always love to see a Legend of Sleepy Hollow roller coaster where almost like a dueling coaster situation where one coaster is the Horseman and one coaster is Ichabod.
Oh my God.
Like, I just feel like that would be super freaking cool. Not going to happen.
Maybe the Headless Horseman can chase us through this ride.
Absolutely.
I want to be chased, clearly.
I agree with we need an e-ticket attraction that's similar to Rise of the Resistance, something that's more immersive and also like contained in some sort of like trackless ride. And I think that there is a way to do it where you can feature a bunch of villains, sort of like almost like a council of villains sort of thing where it's like kind of like what they've done in Kingdom Hearts, to be honest, where you have like the council of villains who are trying to like enact a particular goal or something like that. So, and that could even tie in with what the purpose of the land even is.
Yes, so, because it's like
almost like if the land has a mission and then that ride is the articulation of the mission of that land.
Yes, which is very Rise of the Resistance. Yes, I agree. Yes. And this is its own land, right? This is not continuation of Fantasyland.
No, this is its own land. It is being
Oh my God, that's just it's hard for me to take on. It's just like
I know.
I can't believe we're getting a new land. Oh man. Okay. Yeah.
Dining experience, I would love a great hall or something like that. I think they could also do something really cool with like Scar and food.
Yeah, the
given
bones.
that like Scar and the hyenas and like all of that. Like they could have lots of food on the bones.
Yeah, like Mother
a show.
Gothel? I don't know.
Yeah, a show. I could see them doing something. I don't know why this combo comes in mind, but like Hades, Mother Gothel, and Dr. Facilier. I feel like
I had the same because I was like, who are the showbiz? It's those three.
Like they're the
showy
ones,
showbiz.
and then like throw in Yzma too.
Oh crap! Yes.
And like the four of them hosting a sort of like thing where maybe they're trying to like
especially because they're all kind of funny too, so we can get the comedy
they're like
in there.
They're trying to trick you into doing something, and then Kronk comes along and just like fucks it all up for all of them. I could see that. I could see like an Ursula submarine style ride because we don't have that in the Magic Kingdom anymore. And other Disney parks like Disneyland have that sort of submarine voyage thing. some sort of underwater ride with Ursula would be really freaking cool.
It would.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And then shops, like
I want like Lady Tremaine's something, or like I want one
yes.
that's like gorgeous and lush, and then I want the other one to be like,
Elegance.
yeah, like I want one to be demure and one to be brat.
Brat. Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
one from Yzma, one from Lady Tremaine. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, baby. 100% in on that. But they also had Magnifico in like the trailer for this land. So I'm like, maybe we'll get some Magnifico.
Wow.
Oh my God, if we can meet Magnifico.
Ooh.
Mire.
Okay, let's move on to Animal Kingdom. It was announced that a new 11-acre land themed around the tropical Americas is going to replace Dino Land in Animal Kingdom, and it will be called Pueblo Esperanza. There will be a fountain at the center, a wood-carved carousel featuring Disney animals.
We'll see how long that fountain lasts.
Yeah, true. That's funny. And they described it as very similar to Harambe being very lived in. There's already stories being built into, the building of the land that have to do with the people who live there, all of that stuff. So the land will also be home to 2 signature attractions outside of that beautiful carousel. If you can look online, they already have a rendering of the Kevin little vehicle for the carousel, and it's
my God.
very gorgeous.
Honestly, I'm really on board with this carousel because we only have one.
Yeah, at first I was like, a carousel, Animal Kingdom. But they're doing it right if they're going to do it.
They're doing it right where it's like, it's animals. And I'm like, will it continue to be a bunch of animals that we know? I'm sure there'll be a capybara.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It could be super fun.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so the land will be home to 2 signature attractions. The first is an Indiana Jones ride, replacing Dinosaur.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to need a moment. Okay. So allegedly, Disney is saying this is, quote, different from any other Indiana Jones experience around the world. And I'm like, y'all, you never know. I expect a lot, but you're not fooling me.
I think they mean story-wise. I think they mean the story is going to be a different story.
Okay, because I'm like, the concept art shows the same dinosaur and Indiana Jones and Disneyland Jeep vehicles, but okay. So the story is that we are joining Indiana Jones as he discovers a perfectly preserved Maya temple. He's heard rumors about a mythical creature deep within the temple, so of course he needs to explore it for himself. The other signature attraction will be the first ever Encanto-themed ride-through attraction. So the official description we have so far, quote, inside the casita, Antonio has just received his special gift, the ability to communicate with animals, and his room has transformed into a rainforest. It's time to go explore alongside him, and you never know what member of the family you might bump into, end quote.
When you were like, I swear to God, if they give us an Encanto ride just because his bedroom is a jungle, I'm going to die. Are you prepared to die right now?
We're here. So the concept art makes this look like it could be a water vehicle dark ride, like boats. But this concept art is very evocative and not very literal. So I think they're kind of like, it seems like they might still be working that out. There will also be a large hacienda that will be one of the largest quick service restaurants in Disney World. Construction on the land is set to begin this fall, with the land opening in 2027. Allegedly, construction will take place in phases so that we still have some time to ride Dinosaur one last time. So I ask you this, kind of similar to the Villain's Land, like we knew this was happening, and there's no arguing that a tropical America's land belongs in Animal Kingdom. But here's what I want to know from you. Don't dinos still deserve a place in the park? Also, is there a ride that could have replaced Dinosaur that would have felt like less of a stretch for Animal Kingdom than Indiana Jones? Is centering Antonio to make Encanto work also a stretch? And will this further change the overall vibe and spirit of Animal Kingdom that we have discussed previously?
Okay, this is 100% going to change the vibe and spirit of Animal Kingdom because now dinosaurs are going extinct from the park, and they were part of the original vision for the park, along with mythical creatures. This also further, like we said before, if Dino Land goes, it makes Avatar more of an outlier than
Yeah.
it's ever been, because it's like occupying the space of like, well, what even is it? Are we doing mythical creatures? Because now they're the only mythical creatures in the whole fucking thing.
Yeah. Except this mysterious one inside Indiana Jones, which kind of was a little bit of an eye roll for me.
I mean, I'm glad that they are centering. I'm like, the only way they can justify this Indiana Jones is if they center this on
Oh my
some sort of like
God.
conservation initiative
Mm.
or animal or something like that. It's the only way they can do it. So at least they're doing that. But in terms of what would better replace Indiana Jones, I really thought that they would do something up oriented. I thought that they would do something of like going with Russell and Carl back to South America to like find a new creature or whatever in Paradise Falls. Like they could have even used that sort of like Land Rover thing. They could have kept it all the same, but just changed our hosts, who probably would have felt a little bit more correct for the area. But I know that they're also looking for like thrill, and Indiana Jones is
Yeah.
more of that thrill type of character. And also they want to make use of the property. I think dinos absolutely should be a part of this park somewhere. I don't know where they'll go. If they're gone, I think we need to really look at what this park is actually doing now and
I agree.
get like they're throwing it into a little bit of an identity crisis similar to Hollywood Studios, which is a shame because it had a very clear mission.
I know, and I feel like we're losing it.
Yeah. We're definitely losing it. I think it's in an effort to make the park feel like a full day park, which is like,
I know.
sure, yeah. This all would have been solved if they had just built the park the way that they fucking said that they were going to build it.
It really is true.
Which is so
true.
frustrating. Like if they had built the dinosaur land the way that they were going to, and if they had built the mythical beasts area the way that they were supposed to, this all would be for naught.
Yeah.
Because then they would also have generic areas that they could then plug these properties into, as opposed to this sort of thing. But dinos deserve to be a part of this park, just as unicorns and dragons deserve to be a part of this park. And I just don't think that they're allowed anymore.
Wow, you just made me so sad by saying that those three things are no longer. Oh my God, that's very sad.
And you know what? If we're doing this, take the fucking dragon head down off the front. Take the
Please.
dino head down off the front. Take the parking lot, change the parking lot over, erase it. Don't do, like, just get fucking rid of it. Don't make us constantly think of what was.
I have never really defended Dinoland USA. It needed help.
Neither have I.
But it's just thinking about how many, and I was one of these kids, how many young children love dinosaurs.
And the Boneyard particular.
And now they're just going to have to go to Universal. There's no dinosaur.
The Boneyard was like, that is the smartest playground that Disney has. It occupies a relatively small footprint because it goes up as opposed to out.
Yeah.
And like it is an efficient way of, and that's going to be a real loss.
Yeah,
just the Boneyard.
I'm with you.
Yeah, Tropical Americas absolutely deserves to be in this park. It's just it's just a shame. It's just a shame. I'll just leave it there.
I'm glad that I've had some time. Like, this wasn't a complete shock. This is going to be a really hard one for me. Dinosaur, we all know I love dinosaurs so much. And like, I just remember as a kid, it was the ride that I was genuinely afraid of. And obviously it doesn't really have that effect anymore, even for kids. Because again, like for them, the technology was, it's just dark. But when you could see it back in the day, it was very scary. And like, sure, that's not every kid's cup of tea. And I was genuinely scared. But I think stripping away some of that, and who knows, maybe we'll get it back in Villains Land in some way. Stripping away some of that thrill that isn't just like, oh, I'm on a roller coaster thrill, but like more emotional thrill is a shame, because it's not going to be at the same level from Indiana Jones. And just like, oh man, again, Tropical Americas, yes. Encanto, because of Antonio, and Indiana Jones. I'm so tired actually of Disney trying to make Indiana Jones happen. And I saw so many comments online of people who were so excited. They're like, yes, finally Indiana Jones. And I'm not necessarily against him being in the parks, just not here. Not here. Please.
Yeah. He's not an animal guy. More so than Hollywood Studios, this is an adjustment of what the mission of the park actually is.
Oh, yeah. I feel like Hollywood Studios has already gone down that path and it's over. But this, I thought we were still on the path.
Yeah, Hollywood studios, they were like, well, we don't know what we're doing anymore, and we're not even trying to.
Mm-hmm.
Animal Kingdom, this feels like, okay, we are acknowledge what we once were. We are not doing that, and we're doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
Where now we're doing like regions, like regional
Yeah.
conservation and ecosystems and shit. Which, like, it does still feel intentional that they're naming this tropical Americas as opposed to Encanto land.
Oh, God, yes. And I'm like, listen, weren't dinosaurs all over the world when they existed? Couldn't they have been in the tropical Americas? I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
couldn't we have kept this idea and sort of made it all work? I don't know. Do dinos deserve their own land? Yeah, but whatever.
Honestly, they could have kept the boneyard and rethemed it with Indiana Jones as some sort of like archaeological dig situation.
Yeah, right.
And there are dinosaurs there. Like, honestly, they could have sold
Right.
it. And yes, I know that Indiana Jones is an archaeologist and all that shit, and not paleontologist, but fuck, we can if he's already in the fucking park, we can make it work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let's move on.
Okay.
I'm just gonna move on to another just like real hot topic. We're just gonna get all of them right out.
Yeah,
of the way.
yeah.
All right. So this next one, Hollywood Studios is getting yet another expansion with the addition of Monstropolis from Monsters, Inc. The new area will feature Monstropolis after the events of the film, when Mike and Sully have taken over the rebranded Laugh Factory. The conceit of this not scary at all themed area will be that humans have been invited to Monstropolis to see the sights, visit the Laugh Factory, and laugh it up, because this is how the monsters power the city. This area will feature the first ever suspended roller coaster in a Disney park, as guests will be able to ride through the door vault just like in the film. A white model was on display at D23 for this attraction, which essentially takes place in a gigantic indoor box, which is kind of great for building this thing.
It really is. No camouflaging necessary.
The concept art for the coaster looks amazing as the guests ride on what looks like repurposed scream/laugh canisters that hang on the suspended door tracks beside Mike and Sully. Concept art also teases a possible playground area and Harryhausen's restaurant. There is no estimated opening as of yet, and that's namely because, according to the Wrap, Disney Imagineering hasn't fully settled on where in the park this area will go. Based on one piece of concept art that was featured, which may be an older drawing, we see the city streets of Monstropolis that do not look all that different from the current Muppet courtyard. Retheming this area would save Disney a lot of money, since a lot of the infrastructure, shopping, a restaurant, an attraction, city theming already exists. This has sparked a lot of outrage, understandably, given that the Muppets are greatly underrepresented in the park, and Disney hasn't done quite as much with the iconic characters in recent years. But perhaps the most tragic bit of this would be that if Muppet Vision 3D were to be replaced, we would lose another one of the first attractions from this park, and Jim Henson's very last performance as Kermit before his passing. So Muppet fans, make some noise, because there is another possible area for Monstropolis that would probably make more sense, albeit it would be a lot more demolition on the part of Disney. Another piece of concept art that appears to be more recent shows a wider view of the area, with the Laugh Factory occupying a space with a similar awning to the Art of Animation building, which now serves as the Star Wars Launch Bay meet and greet. The animation courtyard is currently an area that is underutilized now that the actual animation buildings are not being used as they once were. Given this pretty huge real estate, proximity to Toy Story Land, and previously where Pixar Place was, it appears to be a real opportunity to maximize the use of space in the park and to add value instead of retheming existing property. Like, that's my biggest thing. I'm like, we're looking to do ads. Don't constantly just be removing one attraction and replacing it, because now you still have the same amount of attractions, and like, what the fuck? Like, just add another attraction. But another little thing that could be a real add for putting it here in the animation courtyard is there's a possibility that they could connect the animation courtyard to Sunset Boulevard near Rock and Roller Coaster and Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy, which would do so much for the park in terms of flow of traffic. Now, instead of having to cross all the way back to the hub, down the main street and then over Sunset Boulevard to get to those attractions, you'd have another flow pattern that you could utilize and could do wonders for the park. So it's a lot. On one hand, I'm so jazzed for this. I think Monstropolis, makes total sense. Like, I don't know, because I guess Hollywood Studios doesn't make any damn sense anymore. I'm like, this makes
Right.
perfect sense to go in there. And this is a coaster that we've all wanted since we first saw the freaking film.
It is.
It's finally happening. It's a fantastic, whimsical area that we all want to explore. I don't think there's any question of people being unhappy about it coming. They just don't want to see the Muppets go. And I mean, I think one of the biggest things that we could actually do, and I saw someone was like, we should really try and get some sort of American Heritage Society or something to come in and preserve Muppet Vision 3D, because it is a legacy of Jim Henson. It's his last performance. And that's not nothing, people. That's not something to just I don't know. They're just underutilizing that area. I was worried the last time I was there because I'm like, okay, well, smack in between Galaxy's Edge and Star Tours is this poor Muppet courtyard. And I'm like, how much longer for this world is this? But I mean, throwing Monsters Inc. would not make sense if their plan would ultimately be to connect Star Tours to Galaxy's Edge. So I don't know. More hope for Monstropolis to go over in the animation courtyard. So my question to you, Caroline, what do you think the addition of Monstropolis will do to the current identity of Hollywood Studios? Will it help or hurt, and why?
I am very excited for it. However, I do feel like this is honestly I will absolutely riot if there's no more Muppets, but that's a whole separate conversation. I do feel like whether Muppets stays or goes, this is another step in the direction towards this becoming a Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel park. And that's basically what happened. So the second park in Disneyland Paris, and we'll talk about this later as well, is now the adventure park. And it used to be like Disney Studios. It used to be a bit of a similar feel. Even when I went in 2014, it was still very it's a lot. It's a movie lot. And yeah, that gives you a little bit of a leeway, just like the original concept for MGM sort of did, with different stages and stuff like that. And I think this is moving towards what has happened to this adventure park in Disneyland Paris, which is it's just separate IP, separate IP, separate IP, and we're claiming they all go together. I felt this twinge of sadness when you were talking, and it's because, again, I feel like I am losing, and I'm not saying that we can't have IPs added and we can't have progress and we can't have change, but I do feel like, once again, something from my childhood is being very much lost. And when I was a kid, MGM was my favorite park. I loved the idea of the movies. I loved it.
Well, also, we're revamping this Little Mermaid show to go into the animation courtyard. If Monstropolis goes into the animation courtyard, what does that do to this Little Mermaid show?
Does the Little Mermaid exist in the Monstropolis universe? Well,
that's the thing I just don't understand. In either of these places, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm not saying that one IP cannot be in multiple Disney parks. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I do just feel like with all of this, it's getting a bit messy, because I'm like, we should get rid of the laugh floor in Tomorrowland. I mean, Tomorrowland needs attention, and I was waiting for them to say something about that, and they did not. So we should we got to get rid of that. And I feel like if we want to keep it, which I don't know if we necessarily need to, that has to get moved to Monstropolis. Where else? Why would it be anywhere else besides that? If we're literally building out, it's no longer hey, this IP fits into the vibe of this land. It's we are building the land of this movie here.
Yeah.
So then you can't have overlap, because storytelling wise, or whatever is left of that, now that we're just throwing IP everywhere, story wise, why would anything from Monstropolis be in Magic Kingdom when we have Monstropolis? So I don't know what is Hollywood Studios about that at all. So it's
Though
hard.
they could sell the laugh floor, because the whole idea of the laugh floor is you go through the door and it magically transports you to Monstropolis from Tomorrowland. So they could actually like take a whole bunch of like pictures and shit of the Monstropolis that they build, and like, or even have like live camera footage of like fake windows in the laugh floor.
No. Listen to me. Unless they are letting me park hop from that attraction in Magic Kingdom to Hollywood Studios, I don't want it there. I want to be literally transported. You better put me on something and I better end up in Hollywood Studios.
So what is this doing to the identity of the park? Hurting or helping?
Hurting. It's hurting.
Yeah.
It's not Hollywood. Come on. It's Hollywood Studios, and that the Hollywood entity of Disney owns these other Hollywood properties. Like, it's like, sure, Pixar and all we need is Marvel. And I see that happening. I have this feeling that is going to happen in Hollywood Studios. If we're going to get some Marvel stuff.
I'm kind of surprised that the Indiana Jones stunt spectacular hasn't turned into a Marvel stunt spectacular.
I am shocked. I am just shocked at the fact that we're not getting Avengers Campus in Hollywood Studios. I do really think some version of that, and I do think they're going to try to differentiate. I do think some sort of Marvel thing. It's only a matter of time at Hollywood Studios. And what are we going to lose? Because at some point, the only thing that's going to be left is Muppets, because people will freak if they're, or it could be, or we could have the same Tower of Terror. Yeah, we could have that. If we lose Sunset Boulevard, and this is coming from the girl who doesn't ride Tower of Terror, if we lose Sunset Boulevard with that attraction at the end, that is a tragedy. I listen to the music loop for Sunset Boulevard all the time. I absolutely, again, I talk about the vibes. I adore whatever is left of the old Hollywood vibes, of which, truthfully, there isn't a lot. Whatever is left in Hollywood Studios, I love it. And it's just, things like this are causing it to disappear because it just stops making sense.
Yeah.
But what is the story? How did we end up in these places? There is no story anymore. There used to be like, hey, here's how you ended up here. No, it's just like you're here suddenly.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's rough because I am excited, but it's just like, at what cost sometimes? At what cost? I have so many different feelings about that.
I think we ripped the Band-Aid off of most of the rough ones.
The next one I have is quite pleasant. So let's do that. So something kind of lovely. A tribute to Walt Disney is coming to Disneyland with the all-new show, Walt Disney, A Magical Life, debuting inside the Main Street Opera House. It will feature the first ever Walt Disney audio animatronic, and after its opening season, it will play in rotation with great moments with Mr. Lincoln. The concept art shows Walt in his studio office, and according to Josh D'Amaro, Walt will reflect on his life and share his hopes for the future. And they said that the attraction will bring together, quote, the past, present, and the future of Disney storytelling. The Disney family has been involved in the development process, and it seems like it's being done with a lot of care and responsibility. Meghan Trainor sang Feed the Birds, of course we all know, one of Walt's favorite songs, as part of the announcement. And so maybe that will be featured in the attraction, and thinking about that honestly makes me want to cry already. So what I want to know is, hearing this announcement got me really excited and kind of made me wonder why Disney hasn't created a Walt animatronic before now. So do you think there's some reverential or kind of spooky, kind of that's a territory they don't want to go into reason that it hasn't happened? Technology aside, because they claim that it was because the tech hasn't reached that point yet. And I'm like, it has. So why do you think they're doing it in this moment? Why now? And what would be featured in the show, story-wise or even effects-wise, that would excite you?
Huh.
And I have a fun one at the end.
To some degree, I think they are correct in that the technology is not there, was not there to a place that they would feel comfortable putting the name of the company up on. I think now with audio animatronics that we've seen, the shaman in Navi River Journey and some of these Tokyo animatronics, they're like, okay, great. We can make something sophisticated enough to be worthy of the person whose name is on the fucking park. It's kind of funny that they'll be like, yeah, we'll do a president. Who cares about a president? But we're not going to do Walt. So I do think that it's been out of reverence where they're like, we want to do this and we don't want anyone to possibly take this as a joke And
yes.
I think that's been the motivating factor. We don't want anyone to look at this and go crazy.
Is there any creep factor about this to you? Like, will it, like, if you see it, are you gonna be like, this is kind of weird? Like, I understand we've done real people before, but there's something that feels different about this to me.
You know, I almost feel like in pop culture, we've already kind of done, like, parodied this idea of Walt Disney as an animatronic in his own park, even though it's never happened before. So I'm kind of like, well, we've already parodied it, so we might as well freaking do it. But in many ways, I feel like Carousel of Progress is Walt talking to us already.
Absolutely, yeah.
So given that California doesn't have Carousel of Progress, I think this is really nice that they can sort of like have that kind of moment where, like, I don't know if we need it in Disney World because we do have Carousel of Progress. Scenes that I would be really excited for, honestly, I would really freaking love to see like a scene of Walt pitching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Oh, wow.
Or even him just like talking about pitching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Because that's just such an iconic, pivotal moment for the company of like pitching the first full-length animated feature and doing all the voices and acting out the whole thing for everybody. I'm like, I would love to dramatize that scene.
I would be so down. Now that you're saying that, I'm like, you know what? Give me a Carousel of Progress with different big moments in the company's history. I would watch it.
Sure.
I'd watch it.
Feels very Severance, but I'll watch it.
There is like a teeny weeny part of this, and I'm like, ew, it's giving me uncanny, but okay. And my last fun question, what do you think Walt thinks about this wherever he is now?
I think a part of him would be incredibly embarrassed. But then I could see another part being like, him being like, and wow, and look at this audio animatronic. It looks like me. See? Like that sort of like the sort of like dad vibes of it all, of like, look at the novelty of this thing. Like, wow, all these people are really behind this and trying to do the greatest thing. Like that sort of like, I can almost see the Wonderful World of Disney, World of Color, Walt Disney introducing his own animatronic and feeling like this is the coolest, G. Willikers, this is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. I love that.
So on a happier also note on my book, Broadway stars and former Disney Live Entertainment cast members Eden Espinosa and Rachel Potter announced that finally the tradition of a nighttime parade will be returning to Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World in the summer of 2025. So next summer, we will be getting a new nighttime parade called Disney Starlight, and it will continue in the footsteps of the Main Street Electrical Parade and Spectro Magic that came before it, utilizing the latest technology to bring Disney stories to light. The Blue Fairy will bring to life characters and stories from Frozen, Peter Pan, Encanto, and more in this new parade. And I just have to say, the concept art of the Madrigal Miracle Candle Float looks incredible.
It's stunning. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. So my question to you, it's very basic. What Disney films would you like to see come to life in this parade?
Ooh. If we're going with Starlight, I gotta have like Tiana and the Wishing Star. I want stuff from Wish. Please.
That's what I'm saying.
Please, 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 please. Like all of the Wish bubbles.
If it's called Disney Starlight, we gotta have a Wish.
We gotta have
float.
Star. We gotta have Star. If I don't get Star, I'm gonna be so sad.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So absolutely that. So needs are Tiana and stuff from Wish with Star featured. And I can't explain why exactly, but I'd really like something from Enchanted. I like Giselle. I don't know. Put her, I don't know exactly why, but it would be nice to see her. We don't get to see her a lot.
Any other older Disney films? Like pre-Renaissance? Like I think of like that Sword in the Stone float that came out of nowhere for the Disney parade,
right.
and I'm like, hell yes. And like, is there any sort of like deep cut like that you would want?
Ichabod Crane.
Fuck yeah.
They're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it. But I would like Snow White actually.
Yeah.
Something new though. Something new with her. Especially because the movie's gonna be coming out. Like, I don't know. Give me something there. Something.
Cool.
Have to have Wish though.
Have to have Wish,
freak.
yeah.
I will freak out. Okay, let's jump over. This is my last piece of parks news. Let's jump over to Disneyland Paris. So a new area, so this is I touched on this a little bit earlier. A new area of Disney Adventure Park in Disneyland Paris will be dedicated to The Lion King. Disney Adventure Park is already home to Avengers Campus and Worlds of Pixar and will be getting its own World of Frozen in 2026. The Lion King land will include dining, shopping, and a chance to meet characters from the film. The signature attraction will take you to the caverns beneath Pride Rock. It will bring you alongside Simba's journey from cub to king. It's going to feel like you stepped right into the movie, according to the D23 announcement. Pause, though.
Which movie?
The concept art for the attraction, so it depicts a flume ride. So this is going to be, very Tiana's Bayou Adventure, Splash Mountain-esque, at least with this big drop, and the vehicles look like it as well. So it's a log flume ride surrounded by Lion King characters, but these characters are from the live, quote unquote, live action CGI version of the film. The model, however, and what was described at D23 shows the animated characters, and Josh D'Amaro stated that the attraction would be based on the animated classic. So, number one, we'll talk about it in a second. What the hell's going on there? What happened? The model for the attraction shown at D23 also depicts a very large show building for the attraction. And there is a rumor going around online that this ride could be as long as 15 minutes. I'm having a hard time believing it. It would be really exciting. And my mind would kind of be blown that something featuring a log flume portion would also have that much story going on in it as well. That part of it, if it is true, really, really gets me amped. Also, according to that model, the land looks like it will have barriers around its walkways, separating it a little bit from the rest of Adventure Bay. You won't be able to see it. Unlike the upcoming Frozen Land, which is going to kind of be out in the open. And when you're in Arendelle, you're going to be able to see, when you're on the water, the other parts of the park. The Pride Rock Mountain is the focal point of the land, and construction is expected to start in 2025. So first, why do you think the U.S. hasn't gotten a ride through Lion King attraction? Number two, what's going on with this confusion with the concept art? Number three, and I will repeat all of them for you.
Great.
How do we feel about these one ride lands and it kind of being crammed in next to unrelated IPs? And what do you think the restaurant's going to be?
All right. So I'm going to take the concept art question first.
Great. Yes, let's do the concept art.
So I read that it was an older concept art that they had of the ride. So I think at one point they were gearing up for it to be full live action. And then people's sort of opinion, based off of box office, but I think people's opinions of it have sort of waned, and they're nope, we're going to go back to classic stuff. So I think that they listened to some people and sort of redid it, but that concept art never got redone. This is speculation in terms of that they're actually listening. I do know that it was old concept art. But if it's
Lazy.
A result
Why
of
couldn't
them
they
listening
redo
to
it?
us,
they're not going to redo it. It's D23. Okay, whatever.
I know. But if it's an indication that they're listening to us, all right, I'll take it.
Amen. Yeah.
As to why the U.S. hasn't gotten a ride through Lion King attraction, I think it's been a matter of where do we put this, and I think at the time where we would have done a Lion King attraction, we had so many mission-focused parks, and we found ways to honor the Lion King in other ways. So we had the Lion King through that Circle of Life video in the land.
Yeah.
We used to have the Lion King show, which is where PhilharMagic
oh my God, in the Magic Kingdom.
is.
That is just, what a memory.
That's where I pinched my dad's carotid artery and caused him to collapse.
I will never forget
Absolutely.
That's the only thing I associate with that attraction.
He was a good dad. And then we also have Festival of the Lion King in Animal Kingdom. I think it probably would have made most sense for an attraction to go into Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
But at the time, they were trying to really bring the focus to the live animals. And Lion King would probably be a distraction from that.
Well,
Yeah, 100%.
let's go.
So I think that's been the reason where they'd be like, oh, we would put it in Animal Kingdom, but that's not what this park is about. But now they're fundamentally changing what that park is about. So honestly, maybe we'll get it. Who fucking knows?
Antonio got a ride at Animal Kingdom before Simba. Seems strange, but okay.
Yeah. How do I feel about these one-off attraction lands? It just low-key makes me sad because I'm like, if you're gonna do this, why don't you combine Lion King with Jungle Book too? So that you have some sort of flow where you can justify doing a lot of this type of stuff. But to be like, this is one specific land. I think the only way to do that is really like the route that you're going with like Fantasy Springs or Epic Universe, where it's like, we follow this waterway, this magical spring into this land, or like we go through this portal into this land. And I think that's the only way that you can do those sort of like one-off things where it's like, the only reason you're doing this is for the immersion effect, which is what people want. And we'll see what happens with immersion, like whether or not it's I don't want to say a fad, because to an extent, immersion is always what you're looking for in a theme park. But there's a part of me that worries that maybe years from now, we're going to be craving for something more universal to follow everything through.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. When you build these lands around like one attraction for this one IP, what are you gonna? And it won't happen with Lion King, so this is a pretty safe bet. But what about these other ones? Like when people get to be over it, or something about it doesn't sit well with the day and age that we are going to be in the future. Then what do you do? It's
I
a
just
whole
don't like
land.
the names that we're coming up with them. Like, I don't like Cars Land. I don't like World of Frozen. I don't like Toy Story Land.
No,
Let's call it the thing from the film. Let's call it Arendelle.
Magical. It's not magical. Yeah, it's not exciting.
We'll call it the Toy Box. Like, I don't know, something more creative than just Toy Story Land.
Andy's backyard.
Yeah, Andy's backyard. Perfect. And then, but as for the restaurant, I think it'll probably be like a Timon and Pumbaa's Grubhub situation thing. Not Grubhub, but like Grubhub.
Yeah, I love it.
I don't know. I just feel like an old man like screaming off his porch. But what's
of these are making me feel so old. You feel so old.
I'm like, what's the intent?
Where's the story?
Just like immersion. People want to go to the place. And I'm like, I get that people want to go to the place. I'm like, how can you get them to the place and do something else with it?
Because that's what makes it exciting, is the reasoning behind how you got there. That's always been my favorite part of Disney stuff. It's tough.
The fact that we walk straight onto another fucking planet from Animal Kingdom. How?
Yeah.
How? Speaking of another fucking planet, let's talk about Avatar. As had been talked about before, Avatar is making its way to the Disney parks in California. In addition to the announcements that were made to double the footprint of Marvel in Disney's California Adventure, which we're not talking about here, but they're doing.
Yeah.
A new location of Pandora will be added to Disney's California Adventure. Earlier this year, the Disney Park zoning proposal was finalized that will allow them to use more land for park expansions, shopping, and dining. And this Avatar area will be occupying some of that space, it appears. This land will be based on the seaside locations from Avatar: The Way of Water. It appears to feature at least one attraction. Based on the concept art, it looks to be an indoor-outdoor boat ride through the natural environments of Pandora, similar to Na'vi River Journey and the Submarine Voyage. That's pretty much all the details that we have about it right now. It's not much more than I was expecting them to get, because they sort of famously were like, yeah, a little bit of Pandora is coming to Disney's California Adventure. But I'll say this. The concept art for this boat ride looks pretty cool.
I was waiting to see what you were going to say, because I was like, wait, I'm really excited by it.
It looks pretty damn cool. Famously, Na'vi River Journey is one of the most wah-wah rides people have ever stood in a gajillion minutes long queue for. What do you think this new Pandora boat ride needs to have in order to make it a must-do standalone attraction to hold this area down?
It needs to be not a Navi River boat ride kind of thing, but a Jurassic Park boat ride thing. I'm not saying it needs to have a drop. Please
Yes,
don't let
that.
it have a drop. I don't want a drop, please. But it needs to be like we're whitewater rafting through. I haven't seen Way of Water yet, actually. So I don't know. But it needs to have. I love Flight of Passage. And it's got to compete with it in some way. It has to.
Yeah.
Especially because there's even less of a reason for Pandora to be in California Adventure than in Animal Kingdom. I can't even lie to you. I've gotten used to Pandora and Animal Kingdom. I've moved on in a weird way. Like, I will always mourn Beastly Kingdom and everything else that is happening to Animal Kingdom. But I've kind of am like, I go there every time. I look forward to it. I love the ride. And so the attraction's got to kind of blow it out of the water in order to earn its place in California Adventure, because Disney has still been hanging on by a thread to the California theme. Like, again, it's tenuous, but it's there. This is completely being like, okay, we're done with that now. So unless it's like you're in a lab in California, I don't know. But
no, because it's a seaside town and
it makes no sense.
Village in Pandora.
So great. I'll ignore that.
Fucking way.
I'll ignore it. So yeah, it's got to be like, again, closer to a thrill ride. I'm not saying a roller coaster at all, but it's got to be a thrilling ride. And what I'm seeing in this concept art is these creatures like leaping over you. I don't know how they're going to do that, but they better do it to me. They better do it to me.
Yeah.
And I don't care about the Avatar movies, but there is something that is so exciting to me about flying on a Banshee, and I want to have the same experience on this ride where I'm like, oh my God, whatever the name of that creature is just leaped out of the water and over my head. I am mind blown.
These whale creatures are a big part of the Way of Water film, so
I gotta watch that.
I don't know why, but I'm just like, I think the Way of Water locations are more interesting to me than the original films one, and the artwork for this is just absolutely stunning. What I am most excited to see them achieve is how are they going to do this horizon line, this like sea horizon line.
That's what I'm saying.
I want to know how they're going to fucking do it, because this village in the film opens up onto the ocean.
Yeah.
And this
I'm like,
is
don't
very much
lie
a
to
landlocked park.
Yeah, I'm like, please don't lie to me. Don't say that you're not going to have this scene, because now I have to have it. They better blow my freaking mind. I need them to blow my mind. 3D,
there's
I don't know.
Concept art that I'm looking at of like sort of like from a person's perspective at that level looking in, and there's this little peekaboo moment that happens like over the main tent of the village where you can see the ocean beyond it. And I swear to God, if the Disney Imagineers can figure out a way to give the illusion of an ocean beyond this, I'm like, I want that.
I'm into these. I'm into these
that.
big gigantic rafts. I just need it to start moving once you get inside. Like, move, you know?
I agree.
Wow.
I agree.
This has potential.
It does.
But also, I mean, moment of silence for another park's story. Absolutely killed in one move.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
All right, I'm going to clear mine out so that we end with a nice banger with yours.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
so my final thing is not parks related. It is sort of film related. So a pro shot of the stage production of Frozen the Musical is coming to Disney Plus in 2025. Samantha Barks, who you may know as Eponine in the Les Miserables film, and currently playing Elsa in the West End production of Frozen, she took the stage to help make the announcement and perform Let It Go. The production opened in the West End in 2021 after it closed in the United States because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Earlier this year, they filmed the production live on stage at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane in London with Samantha Barks as Elsa, Laura Dawkes as Anna, and Jamie Kasongo as Kristoff. The show is scheduled to close on the West End on September 8th of this year, We don't have a date yet for when the musical will hit Disney Plus, but I'm sure they're going to put a good amount of pomp and circumstance around this. Fans have been overwhelmingly excited for this, as the desire for recorded stage performances is still very strong. So, with the interest in professional recordings of Broadway shows like Hamilton, Waitress, Beetlejuice, and Frozen, what advice would you, Caroline, give to the folks at Disney Plus on what to do next?
Oh.
And not necessarily like what show to do next, but what
Yeah.
should be their next moves be?
That's a good question. I'm all for these pro shots. Like, I want people to see these things, people who who can't get to them, to have the experience to see them. And for people who are like, I don't like theater, but it's something that's on Disney Plus and they turn it on and say, maybe theater's not so bad. I would encourage, I felt like Frozen on Broadway closed way too soon. I feel like there were some things that Disney could have done to save it. I understand that it was during the pandemic, but Disney had a lot of money. They could have saved it if they decided it was the right move. So I hope, my advice is, so this isn't really even as much for the folks at Disney Plus as it is the folks at Disney Theatrical. Like, don't play with the livelihoods of live theater performers, because you can kind of make some bank off of a filmed production of these shows and like close it if it's not doing well. Invest as much energy and money that Disney has into these runs of these shows before banking on the fact that you can distribute a pro shot.
Yeah, or use the pro shot before it gets too bad. You know what I'm saying? Because like it's been proven that pro shots and like recorded performances of stage productions do not deter people from seeing stage performances.
Yeah.
If anything, it gets more people interested in seeing it live. Like, think about Hamilton when that hit. People were like even more like rejuvenated to go see that show. And I'm just like kind of feel bad that like after this pro shot comes out next year, people are going to be like, oh my God, where can I go see this production? And it's like, well, you can't.
Yeah. Regional theaters are starting to pick it up. But I'll say, I feel like it's like we had so many different iterations of Frozen casts, both here and on the West End, have been so amazing. And like, I'm so excited to see Samantha Barks play Elsa. I love her. But like, I would have loved to see Caroline Bowman's Elsa, or Casey Levy's, of course, or Sierra Renee's. So I'm like, these things immortalize one performer in this role kind of forever.
Yeah.
And so I kind of am like, I also hope that they don't necessarily live on Disney Plus forever, because that's not what theater's meant to be either. Like, I want it to be accessible for people, but not indefinitely. I feel like it should be like a run almost when they put these things up on Disney Plus. So it still gives you that approximation of a theater experience, which is that it's here and then it's gone,
Yeah, it would almost be cool to see if Disney went in the route of went in the direction of the NBC Live musical sort of situation. And
I would love that.
Had a live stream of a show, which would definitely be more difficult to do. But people are really anxious to see theater in this way. Like the Waitress release in theaters a couple months ago was huge.
I want it to be accessible. And obviously during the pandemic, I was so freaking grateful for Hamilton. Like, I planned like my whole month around that because there was just no theater. I want it to be accessible to people in their homes, but maybe it's more of like you go to a movie theater to watch this, and maybe it's live streamed, like you said.
Yeah. Almost kind of like Fathom events.
Exactly. Or the National Theater Live events. Yeah.
Yeah. Where like they're pre-recorded or whatever, but they're happening live at the same time, no matter where you are in the world getting that broadcast.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. Let's move on to the final discussion point. This is a big one. So the first teaser for 2025's live action Snow White made its debut at D23, with stars Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot appearing to introduce it and describe what it was like to play Snow and the Evil Queen, respectively. The film is directed by Mark Webb, with new music by Pasek and Paul. So the teaser is a bit over a minute long and opens with Snow White discovering the dwarf's cottage, with echoes of her singing Whistle While You Work in the background. We see the dwarfs marching home in shadow and silhouette, and then the scene explodes into a full view of them dancing with Snow as she sings Whistle While You Work. We cut to the gray, foreboding castle with the evil queen watching Snow at the well. She asks the magic mirror the classic question as we cut to different moments in the film with a shot of the queen as the hag and a quick blink and you miss it glimpse of Andrew Burnap as the prince, which need to pause. I'm so freaking excited for. I saw Andrew Burnap play King Arthur in Camelot on Broadway, and I thought he was beautiful and phenomenal and just like, yes, I want him to be a Disney prince. That's a winner for me. So then we see Snow in the terrifying forest and then end on her befriending the forest creatures as the title flies in. So obviously there is so much discourse happening over Snow White. Pretty much every point about this movie that could be discussed with the little bits of it that we've gotten has been discussed and screamed over on the internet. So first of all, let's just talk about the teaser before we talk about the overall movie. We talked about this a little, but let's give this to the people at home. You and I had a side conversation about this. Why do you think they chose Whistle While You Work for this teaser instead of I'm Wishing or With a Smile and a Song or even a tease of one of the new songs?
I do not know. I do not know because it was not the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
Whistle While You Work is not even top 3 of the Snow White songs. You could have done Someday My Prince Will Come. You could have done one song, which is sort of like that song where you're like, oh yeah, that's in there. I know that song in it, where it's like sweeping and romantic. You could have done With a Smile and a Song if you're going for Whistle While You Work it's kind of like the upbeat number of the show, which is an odd thing to lead a teaser with.
And it doesn't feel like the tone they're going for.
Yeah, usually teaser trailers are a little bit more mysterious, and so
I will never forget the teasers of Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid. They were both so epic.
Yeah, her belting out Whistle While You Work and them trying to make do feel like kind of foreboding as they're like isolate it and like echo it. I'm like, there's no way that you can make that seem mysterious or like, ooh, like what's gonna happen.
I was a little bit into the echo. There's something I was like, I kind of like the echo.
No, honestly, I had said this to you. I'm like, I would have preferred them to do one song. It would have been really cool if like they had like the storybook opening from the animated stuff or animated stuff, and then it just sort of like flicker smash into this. They could have done something like super cool with, I don't know.
Yeah, they could have done that, especially because it seems like we're getting a lot of shot for shot from the animated film. So it's like they could have just done the storybook like that as well.
Yeah, so I just don't know why they went with Whistle While You Work, because also as a song, that's not really giving you anything to chew on in terms of theme. Like Whistle While You Work, I'm like, oh, is it going to be a chore to get through this movie?
Well,
like,
also the story, it felt like
saying?
they were trying to tell with this, with like it ending on like all of like kind of like the heavenly light coming into the forest and the creatures coming around her. I'm into that story. So then it's With a Smile and a Song, then, if that's the story you're trying to tell about Snow White. So the other thing I want to ask you is, why did people decide to scream about this movie of all movies on the internet? Because it is, even if there are teeny weeny bits and pieces where I'm like, okay, maybe that person has a point about this small thing, it's very exhausting. And so like, what is going on?
They're screaming about this because they scream about any Disney princess who is reimagined as something other than literally what the animated character is. They're still screaming about Rachel Zegler being cast in this role, given that her skin is not perfectly Snow White. And I'm just like, you know what? Also, Snow White isn't a fucking real person, so it doesn't even matter. And also, Rachel Zegler has just sort of been like a flashpoint. She's been someone who very quickly rose to prominence within pop culture, and I don't think that is unearned. I think she's a fucking fantastic talent, and I think people are also harping on her comments that she's made about like not feeling like over the moon and immensely grateful for every little thing of Snow White, or like pointing out problems and whatnot. Like, she's fully allowed to have opinions about her job. She can have, and like, if anything, I feel like that's all only going to make the performance better in some ways, that you have someone who's thinking critically about.
Absolutely.
They're not sort of like blindly taking the side of everything, where to the point where they might miss something, they might miss a flaw in the character or whatever.
It's just funny to me because it's like, I feel like people before now who spend so much time kind of like ignoring, forgetting, or making fun of Snow White, that it's like, oh, suddenly like now y'all want to be like, oh, my precious like Snow White, you don't appreciate her. Get
Yeah.
real. Get real.
But honestly, I just say, and I feel bad because Rachel Zegler had to come out and she just kept saying like, it's the honor of a lifetime. It's the honor. I'm
Yeah.
trying to do like this sort of course
I would feel
correction,
sick to my
and
stomach coming out there.
Yeah, I would
like,
too.
Not knowing what you're going to get from people. It's
I would
awful.
too. And I think people should just leave her the fuck alone, because she's an actor trying to do her best. She got the role. She's in it. It's done. So there's nothing you can do that's going to change it.
And I've got
As much as we might want to change that hair and change that costume, there's nothing we can do.
That costume is by the designer of Lily James's Cinderella gown. So it's just very interesting to me. Again, I'm going to hold off. We haven't seen the whole thing yet. We'll see. We'll see.
That's my thing. I don't want to speak too soon.
Yeah.
But my initial impressions from the just glimpse that we got is it feels very literal in its interpretation of the costume from the film. And that wasn't what I was expecting in this. I was expecting something a little bit more abstracted, even if the colors were still represented or the silhouette was still there. Yeah. We haven't seen it in motion. We haven't seen all of her costume. We won't know until we see it.
Yeah. I just got to get out of the comment sections because it's just like, I have this like need to find out who's saying some of these vile things, because I just don't understand how you can spew that online. And when I go to these people's profiles, which again, I need to stop doing, and I will for my sanity, they're like parents with children spewing vile things at someone who in Hollywood who is very young. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Who's very young and honestly really isn't in a position of power within the greater context of this film.
Please. Whew.
Like, people, because actors are the face of what you see, people think that they have a lot more control and a lot more say than they actually do, especially given the celebrities who are like, oh yeah, and I did this and this and this. Usually those people who are talking about big creative choices that they forced upon something, they also have a producer credit on this. So they're allowed to make some of those decisions. But being someone who's relatively new to the field in a project as massive as this from this studio, it's very plug and play. It's very, you come in here, you do the thing, and the machine will move you through the way it needs to.
Exactly.
And like fucking do your best. There's not a whole lot that she can actually do other than say her lines. So
yep.
I mean, and that's me speaking from like my experience being on an NBC show.
But that's what I was just going to say. I was like, you're giving some really good perspective from your experience. So I think it's important that people who don't work in this industry hear and understand that. It's very important. Yeah.
Like, people will be like, oh, when are you going to say something more? Or like, why didn't you do this? Or that? Yeah. I'm like, I don't have any say in that.
No control.
I'm like, I'm given a script. I'm told that I have to say those lines. I'm like, people are like, what's Dick Wolf like or whatever? I don't know. I've never met the guy. Like, I'm not, just because you're an actor, just because you're what's seen on screen doesn't necessarily mean that you are in rooms where any of the decision making is happening about what you're actually doing. So I think it's important to know that and look at people like Rachel Zegler and be like, she may not actually be in the position of power that she appears to be. And 9 times out of 10, they aren't. So chill. And that's my little soapbox moment on that.
Yeah, thank you. We've been meaning to get to this for a while, and this was a good moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. That is our D23 recap. We obviously didn't cover everything, so make sure that you go to the D23 website, read up on some of the stuff that we didn't talk about, read up on some of the stuff that we did talk about, look at the concept art for this stuff, because Disney always does such a beautiful job with concept art, even if it's not always the shit that we end up seeing in the very end. But the pictures are nice. So go enjoy them. And thank you so much for joining us. If you liked what you heard, please remember to hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast. That way all of our episodes download to your device. You don't miss out on anything. And then this is that moment. Hit 5 stars, leave a written review wherever you're listening to the podcast. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, Podchaser, any of those places. It helps us get seen in search results. It helps other people find the podcast. And then also hit that little share button on this episode and send this to a friend. It's a great place for people to start.
Yeah, and if you have a friend who you always send little reels to on Instagram or TikTok, we will post a little clip from this episode. We will post other materials related to this episode on our social media. Share that with them. Please. We are at Poor Unfortunate Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and TikTok. You might see me and Connor recently kind of like taking a pause and really asking you to like share some of the stuff that we put up. Whether we like it or not, social media is a huge way that people are going to find us if they don't know about us yet. And like we want to grow. We love our OG fam and we just want more people to hear it. And we're so flattered that so many people reach out and like ask when you were going to get our opinions on the D23 news. And like that kind of thing keeps us going. So tell that to a friend. Say, hey, if you're interested in the D23 news, you should listen to this episode. Something as simple as that. We say it all the time, but I hope that like me going on and on about it in this moment will grab your attention and we'll make you do it right now. Just like as you're finishing the end of the episode, just open one of those apps and send something of ours to somebody. It would mean the absolute world, and we thank you. And if you want even more Poor Unfortunate podcast in your life, if you want to discuss all of this news, which I'm sure if you're listening, you do, please join our private Facebook group, The Poor Unfortunate Fam. We've got over 100 listeners in there. You do not need to be a big Facebook person to join this fam. It's just a great place to pop in, drop a thought, interact with someone, interact with Connor and I. If you have something that you want to say to us about any of your opinions, come let us know what you think, because we're really interested. We want to know the things that you want us to talk about on the podcast. And so that is the best place to do it. And we would be really, really excited to meet you there.
And if you're looking for any Poor Unfortunate merch, the Poor Unfortunate shop is open. PoorUnfortunatePodcast.com/shop. We've got t-shirts, bags, all that good stuff. So go check it out. Find the things that you need. And as I always say, it does take us a little bit of money to keep the podcast up and running and coming to you. We do have a PayPal account. It is linked in our episode description and in the website links in our social media accounts. Truly, anything that you have to spare goes a long way for us. It could be $1, $5, $10, more than that. It could be a one-time donation. It could be a monthly donation. It all just goes right back into the podcast, helping us keep it free and ad-free for the most part. And to all of our monthly donors, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We would not be able to do this without you. Alrighty, we will be back next with another episode of Caroline, What's New?, where we'll talk about even more Disney news. And then we'll be back for a fun wild card after that. So until then,
Beluga Savruga.